maybe I can start off by just kind of giving a background of like what a big deal you are. I don't know how many other ways to say it, but it's true. You're a really big deal. And I'm based in LA and based in the US, and you're based in Canada. But in Canada, outside of the US and the Philippines, there are 1 million Filipinos. And it's been 17 years since there was any Filipino representation in parliament at the federal level. I believe there's no representation at the provincial level. And you were the first one who really helped break that ceiling, being the first Filipino member of parliament in Canada. And so welcome, Rechie. Do you want to say hello to our viewers?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm trying not to already get welled up. We just got started. So to everybody tuning in, thank you, as Jessica said, for making the time this evening. We're all living very busy lives, but so first of all, happy International Day, happy International Month, happy Entrepinay Day. Today is our day that we are claiming and taking space for. So I'm really happy to be here. And really the reason why Jessica and I are here is because we want more representation, more of us representing in different public service offices, whether that's in government at different levels and spaces. So we're just hoping to finally kind of initiate the conversation, to share our experiences, because I think it's the only way that we're going to be able to represent more and then to learn from our experiences as well. So just thank you everybody for making the time. Anna Marie, I know you're there. Thank you so much. And Abigail for, I really needed that. I had a very crazy week so far. I really needed that kind of stress reliever. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rechie. And yeah, we have to keep saying each other's names, and we have to keep saying the names of Filipino women in our history, like Gabriela Sinilang, that are too often invisible, right? So even though I feel like, oh my gosh, people might have heard my story before, or I don't know if you feel that way sometimes, Rechie, like, have I talked about this one too many times? Maybe people already know what it's like to be a Filipina, and I have to remind myself, no, they don't, because there's so many layers of our identity that make it so much harder to be in the public eye and so much harder to be in government and politics, right? From our gender to our ethnicity. And you're a mom as well, a working mom and an entrepreneur. And so you have, had such a rich history and a rich career even before you entered politics, but maybe we can start out there. Like, where did you start with your journey into politics? And I think this is really important to share because I want everybody listening and watching to know that there's so many different paths. There's no one path to become a commissioner. There's no one path to become a member of parliament. Every single person has their journey, and every single person, as long as you care, I think is the biggest thing, as long as you care about public service and really serving the community, that you are qualified to be in these roles. And so why don't you take us through your journey of how you became a member of parliament?
Sure. It has been definitely quite the journey. I didn't quite wake up one day and say, yeah, I'm going to enter politics. No. There was certainly a lot of lead up to this journey of mine. So you already mentioned I did corporate banking for 15 years. So anyone out there in the corporate industry or just working like what we call a 9-to-5 job, I was doing that and I thought that was it for me. It was super secure. I had a predictable schedule. In that time, I was able to have my 2 kids, get married, have 2 kids. And it was actually Cassidy's first birthday where things changed for me because I decided to do something different and make her first birthday cake. So bear with me. So I made her first birthday cake, and it was the first time I connected to something that made me feel alive again as a person. And I became obsessed over baking. I had to basically teach myself how to make cakes, desserts, And that turned into my very first business, where I made birthday cakes, and eventually I graduated to make wedding cakes and dessert tables. But it was the first time, Jessica, where I felt alive, and I was connecting to my creativity or a different part of me that, because when you're in corporate, you're very much doing what someone else says. And entrepreneurship was such a deep experience, because when you're an entrepreneur, you have to do everything yourself. You have to market yourself, you have to put yourself out there, you have to build your brand, all those things that an entrepreneur goes through, I had to go through. And that one business turned into another. And it's really through that entrepreneurship life where I was actually able to let go of the predictability of a corporate career. And then I wanted to be my own boss. And so that was so hard. I had to prep my husband for 2 years and say, hun, it's going to take, I'm going to do this at some point. And then I finally did. And that made me really rely on myself as a person. But then it also allowed me to do something much more important. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to look outside of your box, because you have to now lean on others to really help connect with, do collaborations with, because that's the only way you're ever going to grow. And then I started to meet all these other, in Toronto, there are small entrepreneurs who are also doing the same thing, Jessica, whether you're baking, you're opening your first restaurant, there's a whole bunch of us that I discovered, and I wanted all of us to connect. So when I saw Anna Marie with Entrepreneurship back in 2018, I was like, what is she doing out there in LA, connecting people, doing cool things like wellness programs? This Anna Marie and entrepreneurship is a part of my journey to enter politics, because when she flew, she's crazy. So she flew, she said, sure, let's do it. I'm like, okay. And then she flew here and we made an event just for Pinays, just for us. And again, brought together many different Filipinas from across Toronto, from different backgrounds, different industries. And we had a day for ourselves focused on wellness and building our skills as business individuals. Anna Marie and entrepreneurship is a part of my story, because then that changed me. And I wanted to just give back to the community by coaching, mentorship, creating spaces like this. And then eventually, those individual one-on-one conversations turn into this real desire within myself to do it on a much larger scale. So eventually, once the election process came around and I had the opportunity to do it, it made me brave enough. And I think that's the key word here. It's I finally became brave enough to say, well, I've proven that I can live without a corporate life. I've proven that I can build a business. I've proven that community can come together. So why not? So it's really that first why not that I said, okay, let's try it. And this is without any knowledge of politics. So a lot of us inside Jessica, we kind of worry, right? We worry, are we going to do it right? Are we going to, where's the manual of being a member of parliament? I had none of those things. But I had to just rely on all the skills I developed up till now. And I think I just wanted to touch on those, because those are very important decision points that we make as individuals that make us brave enough to put ourselves out there. So I just have to share those milestones, but entrepreneurship was a part of it.
That's beautiful. And I love how much you talked about being an entrepreneur and how all those skills transferred so well to being in politics and government, because you know what it's like to have to fight for yourself, right? As an entrepreneur, you're constantly having to fight for your brand, your product, your reputation, to be able to make it in a really tough industry, especially you're in the food business, which is incredibly competitive, and to have done it on your own, because you weren't professionally taught, right? You started because of wanting to give something beautiful to your daughter, right? And so it comes from a place of love and care that eventually turns and it snowballs into something more. And I think it's beautiful that you shared your journey, because I think that every single person should really see themselves and think of themselves as a leader, right? As a leader. And that could be a leader in your industry, or that could be a leader in an appointed role like myself. I'm appointed as a commissioner on the Board of Public Works by the mayor, as Anna Marie mentioned, or as an elected leader like yourself. And you're right, that bravery aspect to be able to put yourself out there, especially as a woman, must have been a really vulnerable experience. I imagine that it was not an easy decision, and it probably wasn't a personal one. I imagine it was one that you probably had to think about your kids and your family, and you know, uh, uh, what that would mean for the balance of your professional life and your personal life. Now that you've been in this position for a few years now, what does a member of parliament do? What is your role? And like, why are these roles so important? I feel like that education aspect is something that I know I'm trying to be better about, that I know a lot of us in government are trying to be better about, so that our constituents and our voters understand why these roles are so critical.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So just to start off, I recognize our listeners are both North and South. So a member of parliament, what the heck does that mean? That is, first of all, a member, if you kind of can picture Canada in your mind for a minute. So Canada is sliced up into about 338 sections, and these are called ridings. And each of these ridings, so in the House of Parliament in Ottawa, in the federal government, there are physically 338 seats. And so the riding that I represent is a riding where I grew up. I immigrated here in 1989 from Zambia, Africa, where I was born. And I grew up in Mississauga. And so Mississauga Streetsville is a section of Mississauga as a whole. And so that's my one riding, my one seat out of 338. So having a seat at the table it's literally having a seat at the table, because within the federal government, we make decisions that impact the entire country. So as tax dollars within Canada, you are, first of all, in a democratic society, which we have both in Canada and the US. As voters, you are selecting the person that's going to represent you and your views in Parliament. And so for me to have a seat is phenomenal, because not only do I get to represent Mississauga Streetsville and my constituents, there's about 118,000 constituents in my riding, I also have the privilege of also being the voice of just about 1 million Filipino Canadians. So if Filipinos are the third largest growing Asian population in Canada, and there's only one person representing the decision-making process and policies that happen at the federal level, you can see why representation is important. And I recognize that there are going to be challenges. I recognize it's hard being a public figure. I recognize there's challenges with personal decision-making. But if a mom of two, an entrepreneur, and someone who flew and immigrated here from a little city called Kitwe, Zambia, can do it, then I believe that anybody can.
I hope if you're listening, and you, especially if you live in Canada, that you add some serious thought about running for office one day, and one day soon, because it's really a conversation that we're trying to have more and more. And it's about our pipeline as a community, as Filipinos, as Asians, to really make sure that we're at the table and have a lot of impact around the policies that will impact us anyway, regardless of whether or not we have somebody that looks like Rechie on Parliament. And and maybe I can share a little bit about my experience since you talked about Canada. And so the member, your makeup in Parliament is very similar to our US Congress, where it's made up of an upper body and a lower body, or some we know that as the US House of Representatives, which is the lower body, and the upper body, which is the US Senate. So in the US Senate, we have 100 members. So that is each state has 2 senators, no matter what your size. And then in the House of Representatives, it is based and reflected by each state's population. And so there's 435 seats. And so together, this makes up our US Congress, and there's 535 voting members. So that's what it looks like at the federal level in terms of our government structure. In terms of the local level, I went macro, and I'm going to go micro, where I am in LA City. But the city of Los Angeles is the second largest city in the United States. There are 4 million people here that I myself am personally responsible for. And my commission is unique in that we are the only full-time paid executive board by charter in the city of Los Angeles, because there's only 5 of us. And collectively, us 5 commissioners make up the general manager of the Department of Public Works. And the Department of Public Works has a multi-billion-dollar portfolio as a department, because we handle city services like your trash, your recycling, your sidewalks, your streets, things that impact your day-to-day quality of life. And then we also deliver, as Anna Marie mentioned earlier, a lot of the big infrastructure projects within the city of Los Angeles. And so that's our responsibility. And we have over 5,000 employees. So that's just public works in a nutshell. And so for me, it's really important to have representation on the commission, because outside of the Philippines, LA County has the largest population of Filipinos. There are over 500,000, over 500,000 Filipinos here in LA County. And so it is, as Rechie mentioned, a lot of work, because you can imagine how inundated we both are, not only dealing with the normal day-to-day of our work, but requests from our community, because we really want to make sure that we're serving all communities, and especially underrepresented communities like Filipinos and Asian, equitably in government. And so hopefully that was helpful, so those listening in can kind of understand Canadian government a little bit better and US government a little bit better. And we really hope that you consider thinking about running for office, and just even maybe start by trying to be on a commission like myself. So it just starts with baby steps. I think we can do a deep dive on why is it hard specifically for Asian and Filipino women to run for public office. And before you respond, I know we talked about this previously, but I want to share with anybody watching just some reports that have come out in the last year that really shine a light on the gap of representation. So last year, there was a report put out by this organization called Reflective Democracy Campaign. And these are results based on US politics, that Asians are the least represented group in government and politics. And that's shocking to me, because Asian Americans in the US make up the fastest growing minority population. So we are the least represented, but the fastest growing. And the number that we're represented across all elected leaders from the local, state, and federal level is really shocking to me, Rechie. And we are represented by less than 1% in all elected positions across all levels of government. So I'm just going to let that sink in for people who are listening. But for me, that was really appalling. And I thought, what are we going to do? You know, I think for me, one of the biggest things is talking about what it took for you to get here, what it took for me to be appointed. And maybe we can start with you, Rechie. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this by sharing the story of the journey to run. So anyone, I think you guys are all aware, you've, driven around your neighborhood and you one day see these signs everywhere with somebody's name on it. That is campaign time. So just to give you some context of how crazy my life changed. So one day I went from running my business, just making drinks and desserts. And then the very next day, walking away from all of that and running for office. So when you put your name on the ballot, you're advocating for only one person, and that's you. And internalize that for a second, because I know how hard that is to just put your name on a sheet of paper, to put your name forward for anything, let alone running for office. So I did that, and I had 36 days. That's it. So that's just over a month to make a difference.
I didn't know that you only had 36
I had 36 days. I did not have a campaign manager. I didn't know that I needed one, but I did. So I needed a campaign manager. I needed a campaign office. I needed to raise money. Because in order for you to have a campaign in the first place, you need funds behind that. So in 36 days, I had to find all those things, get the office set up. I've knocked on so many doors. From the crack of dawn, well, until I was allowed to, until I couldn't see like light. And we were door knocking every single day with my team out there with many volunteers. But if you can think about what it takes, you need to raise money, recruit, figure out your game plan, create marketing, or have a sign that says your name on it. And it was the most craziest, most intense time ever. Now, that you can already, just from sharing all that, you can probably guess how difficult that would have been. And then, of course, on top of it all, not having experience in politics. So imagine if you're going door to door, the preparedness that I needed to get to be able to confidently speak with constituents who had a whole lot of questions for me was insane, because questions can be related to immigration, could be related to housing, it could be related to a myriad of other things that we manage at the federal level. And so that just gives you some context. Now, I'm going to share a story about someone who decided during election to advocate for me. My mom. She decided to support her daughter and be brave enough to door knock. So she called her friends, my titas, she called them, and she said, guys, we got to go door knocking for my daughter. And so they did. So on her very first door knocking experience, she was there with my red and white t-shirt. She had her list because she couldn't use the app, so she had to bring her paper and pen. And she started to door knock. And during that experience, my mom, probably a couple doors in, had the worst experience ever. She got to a door with someone who was extremely racist. And so she was just door knocking, door opens. The person on the other end happened to not be happy with her presence on their porch, and started to yell at my mom and my tita at the door with very racist comments about who she was as an Asian woman, and yelling to get the hell out of that doorway, to get out, I don't want to see you, and slam the door on her face. That story will forever be with me because my mom could have, from that moment, stopped door knocking for me. She could have quit at that very second. It was her first day being brave enough to do this. And I think at that moment, she realized what her daughter was about to go through for her career. And instead of her being ruined by this experience, which was horrible on her first day, she came back, she regrouped, we had a conversation, and she got back out there for the rest of that campaign. And so the challenges that we face are one that has to do with being in public office in the first place, which is, being judged for who you are, what you represent. And so I and all the other people within government do experience what it's like being in the public eye and the scrutiny involved, and the huge magnifying glass that is upon us. But I had to share that story about my mom because thank you, Mom, for being there for me. I love you. And also, that story represents the challenges that we face everywhere.
I hope to meet your mom one day so I can give her a hug, for being so brave, because it's not even scary just for the person running. It could be scary for supporters, for your family. And so this type of hate and discrimination and racism is so real. And it still exists even after you win. Even here in the United States, I serve in other political boards, and I have colleagues who are elected officials, Asian women in very progressive cities. And mind you, California is a progressive state. We're the fifth largest economy in the world, and we have a majority Democrats represented at the state level. But there's so many stories that I've heard and I've seen firsthand of elected Asian women, elected officials being attacked. And the violence against Asian women, the violence against Filipino women, especially right now, that's being fueled by a lot of things, particularly as we know from the past US presidential administration, actively fueled a lot of anti-Chinese, specifically anti-Asian rhetoric that not just impacted the Asian community, but impacted every person even perceived to have been Asian. I see the reports here sometimes in the city of LA of somebody being attacked in public transport or on the street, and they weren't even Asian, but because we have masks on, they were attacked. We know some of them are hate incidents because of the things said prior to the attacks, go back to your country, go back to this place. And so we see it, and we can, and it really fuels this really hateful environment where I know people like my mom and my dad and my elderly titos and titas might be more fearful being out in public. And that's why people like you are so important, because I know you faced some of that on your own, even after being elected, but you still speak out about it. And it's so scary, but it's just like the message that Anna Marie gave to all of our listeners. I really want to affirm and give back to you that, you are not alone. If you're an Asian or Filipina elected official or you've been attacked, know that there is an entire community here who will wrap our arms around you. Please share your story, because it's really important that we not suffer in silence and that we be intimidated into silence. Because that's what they want, right? They don't want you to run for office. They don't want you to have power. They don't want you to have representation for your community. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to bully you and intimidate you. So I just wanted to say that to you, Rechie.
Thank you, Jess. I really appreciate that affirmation. And I can share with everyone here, and I have no problem doing so, that I'm sure in the US, you may have heard the news that we experienced in Ottawa with the trucker convoy. I'm still healing from that time. It was very difficult for me. Um, but I want, now that I'm kind of past it over a few weeks, I can share that a few things with you all, which is that I'm hoping, because a lot of times people look at that experience and then it actually adds additional fear as to why, again, you should never run. But I didn't want that experience to deter anybody from still considering how important this role is. I did a lot of things after the trucker convoy. So for some context, with the trucker convoy that took over Ottawa, there were protesters that took things very far. They were waving flags with very hateful symbols that are triggering to so many of us. They would say things that were very hateful. And so I was surrounded by hate. I saw it every day when I went to work. I heard it through the constant honking that didn't stop. I got it all over social media, through emails, through phone calls. My team were overwhelmed. I think on average, we got like maybe several hundred emails per day. And my mail in my mailroom was inundated with not nice, pleasant things. And even myself within my social media, I got blasts of racist and violent comments that even wanted to threaten my own family. And of course, what did that do at that moment? It made me see the worst of humanity. I was talking to you, Jessica, just a few days, actually the same day that some of that happened, and I was a mess. And both Anna Marie and Jessica spoke to me, and just like they said, they wrapped their arms around me and comforted me when I really, really needed it. Because in those moments, you feel alone. And I can tell you that you're not. And you just have to surround yourself with people who will give you good vibes and who will lift you up when you feel at that moment that you are alone and you're not. So from that really tough time, I was able to get back up again. And it actually formed in me even stronger conviction, Jessica, that I will keep fighting. And it didn't deter me from flying to Ottawa and going to sit in my seat that I earned on my own. I went every day, despite the convoy and the protests and the anger and the vitriol and the hatred. I kept on going to take my seat where I belonged. And it has now given me so much conviction to fight every day for all of us and to believe in ourselves and that we belong. And so to all of you who are listening, I can tell you that we all belong. We belong here. We can earn our space and we can take up space, rightly so, because we deserve it. And so it does definitely take a little bit of bravery, but something more. It takes surrounding yourself with amazing women and amazing people who are going to be there for you and to give you the positive messages that are the things that you actually have to believe in, which are the truth. Whenever someone comes at you with hatred, it comes from a place of lies, and it comes from a place where that person's in a very bad place. So just be reminded that the only voices you ever need to hear are the voices in your own heart and by the people that you surround yourself with.
That was beautiful. I feel even more inspired by you, and thank you for just sharing your experience and your story. And I know it's been only a few weeks, and so I know it's still, it still hurts what happened, but being vulnerable, I think, is a strength that women bring to these leadership positions, because we are honest about what it takes, and the journey that you bring everybody along, with you. And so thank you for uplifting women, Filipinos, Asians, Canadians, Americans. I'm so inspired by you. And I hope that you know that there's a little girl or a little boy watching this and saying, I want to be like Rechie Valdez one day. And so your impact is going to be immense. Maybe I can transition and kind of, I know we've been talking a lot about our challenges and our story, but maybe now we can move into some of that action-oriented part of our fireside chat, which is like, what can we do about this, right? Like, what can we do to support women in politics? I don't know if, since you ran, if there's any new resources for women or people of color who can run. I know I can share a few here in the US, but what can we be doing better for our viewers and listeners? What should they be focused on?
That's a really great question. I always, now that I'm on this side and I'm starting to learn the ropes of the role and what's out there, I can share first that sometimes interest, if it's there, begins simply by volunteering. Now, why volunteering? Volunteering either to assist a campaign, volunteering to assist what's going on in your community within politics is really important, because sometimes you want to make sure that what it kind of gives you a close-up of what it's like, and you get to experience it by supporting somebody. And really, if you can say join a campaign office and campaign for someone and learn how it's done, you can really learn from that experience. And if it's internally something that you can say, you know what, I can do something like this, and you actually get closer to people who also have answers as well about your specific area, city, town, state in your case, and province in mine. And really, by volunteering, that is where I feel like the seeds are really planted for someone, because you can see it. Sometimes just talking about it doesn't really help. You actually have to see it and believe it. So volunteering is huge. And really, the motion is turning to create support systems. In Canada, without getting into too much politics, there's certainly a lot of resources once you decide which governmental party you want to be a part of. So educate yourself, see what the parties, which party aligns to your specific personal belief system, because that's what it really comes down to. Politics allows you to choose a place that aligns best to who you are as a person and go for that direction. And then once you're within that area, all of a sudden a whole bunch of other resources, people, communities will be around to support you. Plus, even just talking to anyone that you see or know, people are more than willing to say, yeah, I can help you. Just asking. It seems really simple, but that's all it takes. Because right now, like, as I get inquiries about this role and what it's all about, I'm more than happy to give some time to share my experience, and I'll go a little bit more. But there's tons of resources available, whether you're in Canada or in the US, I'm sure. But it really comes down to your value system as a person and having that aligned to a specific party. And then you really, once you kind of have determined that, an entire vault of resources become available to you.
Thank you for sharing that. I think you shared a lot of practical tips for everybody listening and watching, and it's not hard to get started. It takes sometimes just, a little bit of baby steps, right? And the next thing you know, you become an entrepreneur and then a member of parliament, all while becoming a working mom, right? It just takes a few baby steps, and really seeing yourself as a leader. And as Rechie said, surrounding yourself with people who lift you, or as Anna Marie said, fill your cup, right? People who fill your cup and don't deplete it, and don't empty it. But here in the US, there's a lot of different nonprofit organizations who are really focused on doing trainings and programs for people who are thinking of running for office. I can share some with Anna Marie after this, in case anybody listening or watching wants these resources. But I think the gap for me that I see is actually not at the elected official level, because that's a huge jump, right? To go from being less political to becoming an elected official. but the gap is actually in the in between at the staff level. And for me, I started off at the staff level as well. And I don't know if I've ever shared my story with you about how I got into government and politics. Rechie, maybe I can just share quickly. But I actually started when I was in college. I got really sick, and I got so sick. I was working too many jobs, too many classes, too many internships, just doing way too much. As I think a lot of us are too familiar with, just really overfilling our cup until it runs over. That I got so sick that I was actually hospitalized on my birthday. And just like your mom, it was my mom who saved me. She busted into my apartment on my birthday, threw me in the car, and just took me to the emergency room. And I ended up being hospitalized for a few weeks. And I tell this story because even though I recovered physically and mentally after a few months, I would not have recovered financially because I ended up with several $100,000 of medical debt because I was in the hospital for a really long time. The only reason why I'm here today as a commissioner of Los Angeles instead of a very stressed out person paying her medical bills is because of the Affordable Care Act, or also known as Obamacare. Shortly before I was hospitalized, Obamacare passed, the Affordable Care Act passed, and a really key piece of policy in this national health care bill was being able to stay on your parents' plan until after you graduated college. And because I was hospitalized on my birthday, on my senior year, I would not have been covered. And so this freak accident that happened to me on my birthday ended up me having this realization about how important public policy is, about how important government is in our lives, because sometimes people just get sick. Sometimes people have accidents, and we need that safety net of not just public policy, but good public policy to really make sure that people like me have a chance to give back and have a career. And so that's how I started in government and politics. And I was really committed to working for this person who I felt like had saved my life. And so I ended up working in the Obama administration and then the LA mayor's office. And I didn't tell you this, Rechie, but I'm actually going to be transitioning out of the city of LA soon. But I'm actually moving over to Attorney General Rob Bonta's office, and he's our first Filipino American Attorney General in the state of California. So I'll be moving over as his Deputy Chief of Staff. And so I'm so excited to work for a historic person in our community. And like what you said, it's really important to share these stories because we all got here a very different way. And for me, it was getting sick. For Rechie, it was about doing something nice for her daughter. These simple things that resulted in so much more that became such a key part of our journey as to why we are now. But I think at the heart of it is that we both care about the community so much. And I think more importantly, we're here to fight for our community, right? It's not a passive role when you're a woman in government and politics. You can't sit on the sidelines, and it's not a spectator sport because you are going to be attacked, and you just have to know that, and you have to know that you have a lot of people who have your back.
Jess, first of all, congratulations. What a way to celebrate Happy Entrepinay Day when this girl right here announces her amazing rise. Congratulations on taking on an amazing responsibility. You touched on something really important, which is around supporting. So being a staffer at any level of government is truly rewarding, because if you are not able to, or if running for office, totally get it. If that's not you, I get it. But there's so many other ways you can get involved. And working with a team and joining a team of people. And in this case, Jessica is joining a much more amazing team of individuals. Congratulations again. It's a way for you to contribute and get closer and learn, because you get to work on policies too. You get to do research. And that's a wonderful way of getting involved. Now, Jess, your story is particularly just inspiring to me, because we all know that when we get sick or when something happens to us, it's a game changer, because you can actually choose. You could have chosen at that point to sit and like wallow in it, right? Like you literally could have chosen to do that, but instead you were like, nope, I'm going to choose a different path. So not only did you get to take care of yourself and make better decisions so that you wouldn't, like you said, be overfilled, you decided to choose a path that was then enabling you to help others and give back to your community. And look at where you are now. So, I mean, you touched on so many beautiful things there as well. So I commend you for taking a horrible situation and really saying, nope, I want change. I want something better for myself, and owning it. And you really did. And congratulations to you for making it this far. This story is very inspirational. So thank you for sharing, Jessica.
Oh, thank you. And like I said, it's painful. I couldn't tell that story right after I got sick without just like busting out crying. But I'm at a place now, and I don't know how you're able to share your story, because yours is even more recent, right? But I think that's the key, right? We see these painful moments in our journey as like a source of strength that drives us, as opposed to the opposite, where we could use it, like I said, for these experiences to silence us, and we choose otherwise. You know, we channel our inner Gabriella Silang to fight against the current, and to fight for ourselves. And that's really what today is about, whether you're an entrepreneur in business, or as Anna Marie has coined, an Entrepinay. Did I get that right? I think I got that correctly. An Entrepinay. So you're like a change agent entrepreneur from like a government institution, less cool and fancy like a business. But I love those terms, because I think that it's an identity that we hadn't really heard before, right? It kind of captures so many identities into one. And so maybe we can close. And I don't know if you wanted to say any parting words or advice, or any last words before we handed it back to our incredible host, Anna Marie. But I wanted to make sure that we gave you the last word, Rechie.
Yeah, I thank you for that. There's a lot I want to say, but there's one message in particular that I feel is the most important, because it's the one thing that I feel that has made the difference for me in anything that I did. Because, you know, like being a mom, like even with my son, I experienced such incredible postpartum depression. Different stages of my life, like literally, like took me down each time, like completely down. And you know, you're going to go through life. Everyone that's listening, you're going to go through life with really tough situations. It's not always going to be roses and rainbows. You're going to go through some hardships. And one of the things I can say that has been the deal breaker for me is leaning into my Pinayness. You know, I understand, or I've learned over time, that I am here because of all the amazing Pinays that have come before me and my ancestors. Anna Marie and I come from a city called Bataan in the Philippines. And I know that when I think about my Lolas and my Lolas, and I think about all of them, I channel their strength. I channel my mom's strength. I channel all of them. And every time I feel like I've hit a wall and that I cannot go anywhere, I simply rely on just understanding and knowing how much grit we Filipinos really do have. We are the hardest working individuals with a whole lot of passion, with a whole lot of dedication. But anytime we fall down, we gotta really tune in and lean in on that, because it is so incredibly important to do that. And when we remind ourselves of where we come from, all of a sudden it's like any hard day, we can get past it. You know, we can really push past it. And it's that pushing past the challenges and whatever life throws at you, because there's going to be a lot of things that are thrown at you. It's it's what choice you make and how you commit to yourself, and how you're able to move forward. That really, really matters at the end of the day. So please, I encourage you all to lean and tap into your Pinayness, your Filipino-ness, because it's very powerful stuff. And just keep on doing what you're doing.
Amazing. Thank you, Rechie. And with that very inspiring last note, I'm going to turn it back over to Anna Marie, our founder of Entrepreneurship.
I just want to thank you both for that enlightening and honestly, well, very honest conversation. It was just, wonderful to hear your stories, your backgrounds, the challenges you've come across, but in a way that's so intimate. I mean, it really does feel like a fireside chat, and that, we're in the same physical space. At this time, I really want to invite our audience to ask questions. I think there are a lot of insights that you exposed, one of which I think is around the transferability of different skill sets across multiple sectors. I think you both spoke about different backgrounds, but also different sectors that you've all been involved in. I know, Jess, you also jokingly talk about, Entrepinay within the government as not as sexy as, as business, but truly a lot of those skills are also very much transferable and are actually very much the same as a traditional for-profit business. I have a ton of questions, and I know our audience will too. One of my questions is around authenticity. And we've been talking about this a lot in leadership. How do we create the environment to encourage and allow folks to be their authentic selves? You both talked about values and different core principles that you really lean into that dictate your next decision, whether it's in business or in politics or in other parts of government that are more resonating more with you. How have you been able to maintain that authenticity in your roles, whichever role it is, and how are you navigating that as you expressed, Rechie? You're in the public eye now. How have you navigated that in terms of the changes you've experienced in your various roles?
That's a really great question. I just shared a little bit of insight of what drives me when I get stuck, because I get stuck often. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. It's really, it's a very challenging role for sure, and one that I've never experienced. So every part or aspect of it is new. So in terms of authenticity, how do I say this? I remember when I won, or I finally found out that I won. One of the first few conversations I had, and this is the truth. I actually said this. I said, I don't know if they have any idea what they've gotten themselves into, because they brought me into Parliament. So first of all, I was like, woo, okay. Do they know that they're not going to get a typical politician? Because I do nothing like normal, whatever that means. I do not talk, walk, or look like any of them. And I'm damn proud of that. Damn proud that I do not walk or talk or look like them. I've just leaned into who I am as a person. So whether, and I'm a really big believer of just staying true to you. So what does that mean, staying true to you? It means when you make decisions, I make decisions always starting in a place where I think about the impact it has on me and my family. Staying true to decision making, whether it's just making sure that everything that I do has a piece of who I am or me. When I started my women's council, for example, all the personal touches that make me who I am, don't be afraid don't hide it. So for me, it was, Anna Marie knows this, I love personalizing things. So I bring my true self at even at the cheesiest level of just how I speak or how I dress. I'm just myself wherever I am, whether I'm rising in the house and speaking. If I'm smiling, I'll smile. I'm not a stiff person, so I have personality, I show it. I think it just means being exactly who you are and coming and representing that. I was so proud when I got sworn in that I wore a bra. You know, I bring myself in every way because I'm so proud of who I am. And I think as long as you just do that in the way that you speak or address people, people will know who you are and they know that you'll be different. And that's great. Different is good. Would you agree, Jessica, like in the work that you do?
No, I do. I think you we spend so much of our childhood and our adult lives. And I don't want to speak for everybody. For me, assimilating, right? To fit in, to be a little bit less Filipino, to be a little bit less Asian, to maybe not bring your Filipino baon to school and ask your mom for like Lunchables or a normal sandwich, right? So like we spend so much time trying not to exude our culture, right? Because it was foreign or different or strange, or we didn't want to get bullied or make fun of. But those experiences that we have as a child and growing up are very formative and translate when you're an adult. So when you're in these positions and you're asked to be yourself, like you're almost, it's a bit of an identity crisis almost, right? Because you spent so much of your the rest of your life suppressing that. So I think that's why these stories that are very formative experiences, whether they're painful ones, are really important to share. Like when I shared my Affordable Care Act story, or when you shared your trucker story that was much more recent, that's being authentic. It's sharing our journey. About how we got here. And for me in this position, you know, I'm the first Filipina in this role, but I really wanted to represent my community in a really big way. Everybody knows I'm Filipino at City Hall, right? Everybody. No, everybody knows my identity. Everybody knows what community I'm from because I represent it all the time, right? Like, what good is it to be Filipino and Asian if like nobody else knows it, right? And so, like, what did I do in my time at City Hall? I was been there for over 6 years and went by really quickly. But for me, it's like I really want to show the community what's possible in these roles. So I've, you know, tried to bring in the community as much as I can and make things and normalize big things like lighting up City Hall in the colors of the Filipino flag. That's never happened before. We've now done that twice since I've been with the city. And last year, I was like, you know what? We've already lit up City Hall, and see now that's normal. So what can we do to like go above and beyond? So we lit up LAX. We lit up Union Station. I was like, what else can I light? Like, let's light more things because I want to show the community what's possible, right? What's possible in these roles. And really, even though I'm transitioning out of the city, kind of the culmination of my time in public service at the local level is actually the unveiling of the historic Filipino town Gateway, which is a project I'm so proud of. It's going to be the largest Filipino monument in the country. And so I hope you come, Rechie from Canada, please come and help us cut the ribbon. But it's a project that I'm so proud of because I don't want anyone who crosses into Beverly to ever wonder what neighborhood they're in. I want them to know unapologetically they're in historic Filipino town and they're going to be greeted by this giant gateway that spans 6 vehicle lanes. You cannot miss it. And it's just going to be a historic day, not just for Filipinos in LA or even Filipinos in the US, but I hope Filipinos globally feel proud. And I hope they replicate this and they see, like what I mentioned, what's possible. So
that's amazing. Okay, when is this? Does it happen to be in July?
It's going to be in May for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Yeah.
So I hope you come out. Once I have the date, I'm going to send it to you and I'll send it to Anna Marie so that it's a big block party and everybody is invited.
It's going to be a fiesta. And yes, entrepreneurship audience and community, you are going to be invited to that. And we hope that we'll be able to do something extra special that day to commemorate and celebrate that day. So we do have a question here. What can the Filipino American or Filipino Canadian community do better to move us all forward? Ooh, that's a loaded one.
Jess, I'm going to let you go first because you've been amazing and I love listening to your insight.
Oh gosh. I think one of the biggest things that we can do as a Filipino community is actually know that we're part of a larger community, a larger Asian American community. And I say that because that was really important in the last 2 years, specifically when we saw a rise in anti-Asian hate, right? They weren't targeting, Filipinos or just Chinese or Koreans. They were targeting anybody who they thought looked foreign. And that hate impacts all of us. And so I think for me, what happened the last 2 years is a constant reminder that it's really important for us to be proudly Filipino and in our identities, but to really connect back to our larger Asian community, right? Because we need to stick together. And the data that I talked about earlier about representation in government and politics, where we're represented the least, that doesn't even talk about the Filipino breakdown. It talks about us as an Asian American community. And we know we're not monolithic. We know that we're incredibly diverse. And we also have to use that to our advantage by building these really strong coalitions within the Asian community so that we can help each other. A mentor of mine, Anna, in the mayor's office, said this to me, and I will never forget it. She said that we are already powerful. We are already powerful, but together we can be unstoppable. And I think that's really the message, is like, what can we do? What can Filipinos do to advance Filipinos and Filipino Canadians is that we really need to work together so that we can truly be unstoppable.
Okay, so when I ran my campaign, I can probably count on my hands how many Filipinos supported me. So 36 days. And I can tell you that it was hard when I didn't automatically receive, other than my family or the folks that knew me already, but it was hard when I thought that I would and I didn't. That took some time for me to handle. There were so many other beautiful communities that did, and they were there and supported me. So I want to just take a moment and thank all of them because they all know who they were and are to me to this day. Now, please understand that I'm not angry about it. Instead, it just like the convoy that I just mentioned gave me conviction. When no one showed up to support me as much as I thought that I would, it gave me more conviction in the role that I have. And that is exactly why I called Anna Marie and I asked her to have an open conversation with everyone. It's because educating everyone about the importance of politics is the number one reason why I'm here in the first place. Everyone's like, what the heck is an MP? I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is? Like, nobody knows. What is government? What's the role of government? It's literally the education part of it. It's understanding the connectivity between an individual and why our democratic society is important, and just really talking about that more. I understood my role when no one showed up. That was hard for me, but that is the very reason why I'm driven today to have this conversation with all of you. I'm driven to say, I get why nobody showed up, because nobody knows what it's all about. And here I am speaking about it, what it's all about and why it's important and why representation is important. That's why I'm here. And the more that we keep having these conversations, Anna Marie, Jessica, for those of you listening, you're opening your ears and your heart to say, okay, these ladies have something important to share. And so thank you for taking this in, because it's going to start with one person. It's going to start with 10. And that 10 is going to turn into 100 and then hopefully 1,000. And that's how it starts. It starts with a little bit of education and understanding and an open mind. And like Jessica said, that's exactly what I had in my mind too. Filipinos are always so freaking separated. It drives me bonkers. We tear each other down. We don't want anyone else to, the door opens for us, but we're willing to slam it behind the person behind us. We have to stop doing that. We have to leave the door open to others. Otherwise, no one is going to be around to further us. I want everybody to know that what makes us stronger is each other. And what makes us stronger is our community. But we have to link arms. Here in front of you, we're linking arms, LA, Canada, and all across the country just by this one particular Zoom. We need to do more of that. Link arms and support, because I need it. Guys, I need it. I don't want to go and run another campaign and only have 5 people show up to door knock with me. There has to be more than that. And so here I am asking you and telling you that I need support. We need support. But the only way we're going to get through it is if we get through it together.
So true. And I think with that also, I think you both touched on opportunities, right? Opportunities for us to link together in the broader Asian community, perhaps even cross-border opportunities. And then, Rechie, I think you're talking about the idea of linking arms, but also taking the time to educate yourself on the importance of government and policy, and that no one is exempt, right? I think we're all touched by these matters. And I think we often see it as a separate sort of track, that if you're not in government, that it does not affect you. You both are just incredible mentors to other people, and also just believers in the idea of mentorship, and again, taking that next person up with you, pulling them up to where you are. You both demonstrate that in so many different ways, whether it's informally or more formally through your roles. Can you talk about, in your mentorship experiences, as you are both so passionate about building this pipeline of more leaders? Can we be honest and talk about what's sort of frustrating in any of that? Like, what do you feel is missing, or where are the gaps?
Ooh, I have a lot to say on this. I'll start by saying that it starts with each of us, because I wouldn't get here if I didn't open my arms and say, hey, Anna Marie, I'm Rechie Valdez from Toronto, Ontario, and I think what you're doing in America is amazing. Can you help bring that experience here to Canada? And she's crazy. She said yes. So it's really taking those individual choices to get educated, to put yourself forward, to collaborate. Each of us have a role to play in the grand scheme of things, because it's when we're closed, when we're like, meh, don't need to know about that, when we just stop caring, all of that impacts all of us collectively. So it really starts at the individual level. And so the challenges really are ourselves being open, because actually just being more open and embracing creates opportunities for you. Believe me. I mean, Jessica took a leap of faith after she experienced what she experienced. And look at her now. It's that choice. It starts with us at the individual level. And I don't want to I don't like overcomplicating things with challenges. There's always challenges. They're always going to be there. If I got stuck on, my fears, because man, I have a lot of them. If I got stuck on my vulnerabilities and my insecurities or the things that I suck at, I would not be here. Instead, you just have to make a choice and believe in yourself, believe in your capabilities. That's all I'll say, but I could talk about this forever, but really it comes out down to you as an individual.
And I think just to add to what Rechie already said, for mentorship, I think one of the biggest challenges is that maybe we do it in a very informal way for women. Right? It's just like kind of informally looking for somebody, or somebody just, reaching out to you, which is fine and it works. But for us to go the distance, for us not just to think about tomorrow, but to think about what we're building 5, 10 years, 20 years from now, we really need that structure, that institution who's going to be there long after I'm here, long after Rechie's here, to continue the movement of making sure women are at the table. And that's really why it's important to support organizations like Entrepreneurship and women's organizations, because that is the institutional knowledge that we need to go the distance, right? Like, I care about representation today, but I'm going to care about it still in 100 years. And how do we make sure that we have not just impact, but lasting impact? And I'll share also just one of the new organizations here locally that I am proud to support. It was launched by two of my former colleagues in the mayor's office. And it's called Ready to Launch. And it's specifically focused on the staff pipeline, because we know that not everybody is thinking immediately about running for office or being on a commission, but it is trying to give women and specifically college students basic access to these opportunities through paid internships. And I don't know if that's a problem in Canada, Rechie, but here in the US, a lot of political internships, unfortunately, are notorious for being unpaid. So if you think about being a woman of color from a low income family and household, you can't afford to take an unpaid internship. I couldn't afford to take unpaid internships when I was in college, or actually that's why I got sick, because I did take some unpaid internships and I was working at the same time to make up for the unpaid internships. And this lessens that gap, right? So those are the kind of structural changes that I know that we need to fix and look at across all levels in the pipeline. But yeah, it's called Ready to Launch. It's a local LA nonprofit, and it's providing paid internships to college students. And so it's just an incredible opportunity. And I hope that our viewers and listeners continue to support women and girls organizations, because one thing I found out at their 1-year anniversary a few weeks ago that I attended was that only 2% of nonprofit giving in the United States goes to women and girls. So that tells us, another gap, that no one's investing money into our success. And so we need to change those odds, and we need to beat those odds. And so we cannot address women's representation without addressing funding, without addressing pipeline, and without addressing and making sure that we support the women that we do have right now, like Rechie. So you let us know what you need, what you run for next. Rechie, we're there for you. Anna Marie and I are flying out to Canada, so we got your back.
The only thing I'll add is related to internships. So I just want to say this really quick, which is that the youth are it, okay? So the youth, I'm not neglecting everyone else. I'm just saying that the youth are our future. And so this year I'm relaunching an internship program from 2019 and putting my own arms around it. It's the 2022 Filipino internship program, and it is paid. Okay, just saying. So it's a 4-week program that will enable youth to actually work within a member of parliament or a senator's office and get some real life experience of what it's like working in a constituency as well as in Ottawa. And Anna Marie, you know how we are as planners. It's all going to be planned. They're going to feel supported. And these interns who come and partake in this program will really feel, supported, learn a lot about the, government, and all the things we've already touched on, and really feel like that they can contribute. And hopefully this seed, because that's what it is. It's really about planting seeds for the longevity, so that after me, that there will be more people that learn about politics and that will continue to want to run or support as a staffer or in any which way, and to keep it going. So I'm starting there, and I'm really excited to be launching that really soon.
That's amazing. Congratulations. And we're excited for our Filipino youth and our broader community to be able to access that. Paid internships is definitely very much needed, especially I think in this sector that often feels like you have to, I mean, what it does is it gives the message that you have to have privilege in order to be in that space, right? That you ought to be able to afford it. And it inherently has inequity embedded into that process. And you both touched on really great points around the gaps in leadership development. One is more at the individual or the micro level, the other is systems level, and the importance of not only maintaining institutional history and knowledge, but also the investments that we need to actually hold accountable from government, from private corporations, from all those that hold funding and the opportunity to actually make these changes at a wider scale. You both are very, very passionate about women's leadership and politics specifically. And one of the things that we had talked about is learning more about what our community thinks about politics and where they see themselves. Are there, at this point, I know we're also working on possibly creating a survey around that, but are there questions that you want to leave folks with? Any reflections or any sort of final thoughts around that topic specifically? We're here with, entrepreneurship is a community of entrepreneurs, emerging entrepreneurs, aspiring ones, leaders, and they're also seeking direction in many ways, right? For some of them, they're thinking of tools and inspiration for their kids, the next generation in their family. So just wanted to pose that as sort of a last and closing thought.
Jessica, I'll let you start.
Okay. That's a really good question. I think, I know we talked a lot about storytelling, but I really want to put another exclamation point on that piece and really encourage every single person listening to know more about Asian history and Filipino history, because that is American history or Canadian history. And there's a lot of really active effort, especially here in the US, to make our histories and our struggles invisible. And that's why we need to know more about people like Gabriela Silang and people like Rob Bonta, people like Kamala Harris, these really formative Asian American figures in our history. Because I'll share one last stat for today, and that's something that came out last May, ironically, during the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month here in the US. And there was a survey that was put out by a nonprofit called Leading Asian Americans to Unite for Change. And they polled American adults all over the country to name one Asian American person, one prominent Asian American person. And the survey found that over 40% of people in the US could not name one prominent Asian American. So just let that sink in. That they didn't even name Kamala Harris, our first woman vice president, who is the first Black and South Asian vice president here in the United States. The top choices for prominent Asians in this survey were Jackie Chan at 11%, and Bruce Lee, 9%, who passed away half a century ago. And so that, I think, for me, really hit home about how far we need to go about learning our history and sharing our history with others. Like literally find ways to talk about Asian history, Asian leaders in work meetings with your friends. It is embarrassing that a majority of Americans cannot name a single prominent Asian figure. And that's what we need to change the narrative on. And with everyone's help here, I know that it's possible. So that's the last thought that I'll leave with everybody.
So that is crazy because there are a lot of amazing Asian Americans or Canadian Americans. And the fact that they couldn't on a survey, because in a survey you can think about it, right? So that's alarming to me, but it's the reason why we're talking today. It is the very reason why we're talking today. I'm sitting here humbled and recognize that this is just one conversation, and it's not going to stay as one conversation. The future is bright, and I'm excited because we're going to think about ways that we can further, you can help me. So I need help, even though, because a lot of the things we struggle with as Asians or Filipinos are the same. We have similar experiences, but in order for me as a decision maker to assist in making policy changes or assist with making changes as a whole, I need to know what the true gaps are. So hopefully over time, we can develop surveys or workshops where you can share with me the challenges, because my own individual challenges can't be it. I'm sure there are other things holding us back as a community. And so once I know what those issues are, it'll help me come up with solutions that can then change the game for us going forward. So this conversation is just one conversation to initiate this topic as a whole. But my hopes is that this conversation continues over time and that it evolves in a way that can further support me in my role as Member of Parliament in Canada, and then that can also then in future help all of us as a community, whether you live north, south of the border.
Absolutely. This is not the last conversation. And I think, you both underscored the importance of being proud and also being vocal about our stories, about our experiences. And it should not only lie in these designated months, because as the data says, if people can't even name one person who is in our recent history or current times, that also points to the lack of visibility and this idea of the perpetual foreigner that we all know is also part of, or also linked just to the issues that we're facing currently as a community, but also to the model minority myth. There's a lot of stuff there that we have been unpacking, but it's not just up to us. It's up to the wider community to recognize. And while you both are in very visible roles and the responsibility does fall on you, just know that, again, you are not alone, that we are here to support you. And I think that this conversation is also a way to invite people to really focus in on what does support look like, and how do we essentially leverage the fact that we do have representatives, right? We're lucky in that we actually have people in these roles now, but we are individually also responsible for making sure that we're heard by you. So anyway, there's a lot still to discuss, and I'm just so honored and grateful to have this conversation with you. You both are incredible, and there's so much that will be in your future, that in these roles or beyond. And I'm just glad to be able to be part of that journey too, and to hopefully continue to, again, have more conversations like this that create the action that we know that we need. So that was not the most put together thought, because there are so many things going through my mind right now. And I also just want to say I'm representing Canada today with my Vinta blouse. And Rechie and Jessica, I want to thank you both also for representing our Entrepinays in many of the different things that you do, whether it was the Filipino American History Month in October, and we talked about the entrepreneurs in our community, or in Rechie's case, I know you're also doing a lot of spotlights on businesses in Mississauga. Our small businesses need that visibility, especially now. So thank you both for all the work that you do. And with that, we are going to close out, and just want to thank you all for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you again next time we have this conversation. Happy Entrepinay Day. What a filling day it has been.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rechie. Thank you, Anne.